What is the most severe case of someone being completely out of touch with reality you've ever seen? International schools are prime hunting grounds for out-of-touch people. A friend of my mum's was a school counsellor at an international school in Indonesia. They were organising a school trip for the year 9, 13-year-olds, top dollar school, so top dollar trip at a fancy hotel. One of the parents came in and asked her about the toilet situation. She replies saying each room has an ensuite, so the kids will be fine. The mother then replies, "But who will wipe his bottom?" Turns out this kid had a maid who slept at the end of his bed at night and would wipe his privileged arse for him. What? What? Huh? My friend stole my card information and bought loads of expensive stuff. I asked her if it was her before reporting it, knowing that A, she was going through a tough time and I wanted to give her a chance to make it right, and B, that I could be in trouble for conspiracy to fraud if I reported it and they believed I got stuff delivered to my friend to claim fraud for the money back. She said no, I thought someone else had done it, so I reported it. When she got arrested, she said she didn't think they'd take the fraud thing so far. She thought you could just call up banks to get the money back and they wouldn't investigate. Wow, they are really anal about this identity theft thing. Who knew? If they made identities affordable, people wouldn't have to resort to stealing them. I'm fairly convinced that my current shift supervisor thinks anyone who works an overtime shift is doing it out of loyalty to the company and not because of the 1.5 times pay rate. At my company, everything above 40 hours is 100% more, so double rate if I understood you correctly. This is standard because we know that's how much his contractor pays him for our overtime, so nobody will work unless paid that. At this one project, he needed a bunch of guys for a couple of weekends, but will only pay 50%, so 1.5 times the rate, but nobody wants to give up their weekends for that, so he calls me because I have put in a lot of overtime before. One weekend equals to 40 hours normal pay, which is awesome when the paycheck arrives, and he asks me why I won't work, and I tell him like it is. You don't pay enough, and it's always been 100%, and he more or less screams down the phone, "Where the is your loyalty to the company?" I couldn't believe it, and that's something me and my co-workers still have a good laugh at years later every time we get together for drinks. Lol. Yeah, that's a huge warning sign, guys, if anyone tries to justify their bad behavior because you have a relationship with them. Worrying. My cousin was spoiled and sheltered her entire childhood through college. Then her parents stupidly cut the leash without any preparation and released her into society. She quickly got in trouble for bouncing checks all over town. My mom picked her up and asked why the hell she was writing bad checks everywhere. Turns out my cousin was under the impression that as long as you had checks in your checkbook, you had money in your account. She didn't understand that you deposit in a number and then can spend or withdraw up to that amount. Please teach your kids basic finance. This was like 1996 before it turned into a who writes a check anymore discussion. You can basically replace checks with credit card and it's updated for present times. Apparently, there are people who think that they're just free money. Credit card at the limit? Time to open up another one. I knew a girl who cheated on her boyfriend. When he found out, he broke up with her. She said, "You can't break up with me. It has to be mutual." Okay. My old boss at the time was a girl of 26 who got $4 million from her mom a year to play with. Her mom is very wealthy in China. Her daughter is here trying to be a CEO of a company for funsies. I accidentally got a job at that company. One day she told us we were all going on a group outing for bonding. She took us to an outlet mall 4 hours away, told the rest of us 7 people that she was going to go shop and she'd see us later. That was code for "don't follow me, fuckers." Every 2 hours she'd let us know she was going to go unload her bags to the giant van they rented and would group text us telling us we can meet her there to unload as well. We all get paid under $50,000. We have nothing to unload. By lunch, she had proceeded to fill up the van with shit. She then asked me where all my new stuff is and I said I'm budgeting right now. She goes, "Take out a credit card and go shop. That's the American way." Seriously. Okay. By 9 p.m. her bags were taking up people's seats and they had to sit with her stuff. She spent $30,000. The rest of us spent about $70. We were tired and bored and cold. To this day, I still believe she thinks she did something nice for us and doesn't understand how polarizing and not at all team bonding that was. I'm sure there was a lot of team bonding involved, just not with her. Oh, maybe that was her plan all along. Clever. Had a friend who insisted she was in a relationship with a C-list celebrity whom she met once during a comic convention. All the celebrity's Instagram and Twitter posts were for her, and everything had a meaning behind it. When the celebrity got married, she said that it was just for the media so she and celebrity could live a quiet life. When he didn't do anything for her birthday, she had a breakdown. She went to therapy not long after. These symptoms are called delusions of reference, and they're very common. This was from a regional manager of Starbucks after they removed merit-based raises that could go up to a 5% increase, changed to a flat 2% increase. When she asked if people liked the new raise plan, I said actually no, they feel unmotivated with no reason to perform any better than just normal. Regional manager, your staff needs to realize working isn't about money. If working isn't about money, why would the company decrease raises from 5% to 2%? To make more money, that's right. More for me, but not for thee. This is my time to shine. So, I grew up with a lot of restrictions that, at the moment, had no idea that the options existed. For example, I was only allowed 2 options of shoes, but the catch was that I need to make the right choice, or that I can make friends on my own, but needing to be told this is your new friend now, so go play with them. Sadly, my dad kept me in a small box, and he was the only one allowed to control what would go into that box or come out. So, when I was 10, CPS was involved and I was taken into foster care. That's when my world exploded. I didn't know how truly bad it was until they took me to a shoe store and told me to pick out the ones I liked. I swear, for the life of me, I had no clue what to do. I stood there for what felt like hours until they noticed and asked what my favourite colour was. I said green because that was what my father told me I liked, but I guess I was too overwhelmed that I just remember saying yes to everything and ended up with ugly brown and pink sneakers. What children learn to do at their normal age is what I am just figuring out in my 20s. So, reality was a hard thing to live because the whole time I was in my dream world. Holy fuck. Hope you're doing better now. Yeah, that is crazy. One bully of a boss asked 3 people who suffered most from his behaviour if they would want to move to a new employer with him as a team. How about no way in hell? This happened at my work too. Apparently had no idea that the people he overworked would not jump at the chance to quit their current job at an established company to work with him at a startup that he had not even created yet. Streamer that I watched a couple of times before his behaviour drove me to stop. It was a shame because when he was actually gaming, I liked the content, but his attitude drove you up the wall, and by attitude I mean raging. Back when I watched him, the rest of the events in this post hadn't actually happened yet. But the out of touch with reality part. He talked about his girlfriend on stream a few times. Nothing wrong with that, except his girlfriend was a female streamer who lived in Europe. He was from the States and he'd never actually met her in real life. She got wind of this through shared viewers and debunked the story on her stream, saying she'd never even interacted with him. This caused him to go nuts and start stalking the girl wherever he could, causing her to eventually stop streaming, delete all her social media, and so on. After his Twitch account was banned for this, he eventually managed to convince Twitch to unban him and then did the same thing to a different girl. Now he's been permanently banned from Twitch as a result of this again and keeps raging about it on Twitter. Just to clarify, I don't follow this guy, but someone posts about him on the game's subreddits every now and then, which is why I know the story. Some people are just bananas. Ugh, it upsets me more than it probably should that these other 2 streamers had their livelihood hobby ruined by some creep. My sister grew up with everything handed to her and literally cried when her first car wasn't the colour she wanted. Married rich, can't fathom why I can't take off work whenever it suits me, and says stuff like, I wouldn't ask my boss for a week off, I would tell him I am taking the week off. Oh my god, how come I never thought of that? You'd be surprised how many people don't understand how PTO accrual works for salaried employees. You get 15 days off a year? Just take them all right now. My sister-in-law, kicked out by her boyfriend, comes to stay with us for a few days. We suggest looking for a flat, cheap house to rent near us. She won't live in the scummy part of town near us. She'd like a 3-bed house with a garden in the best part of town. She has no savings and isn't sure if she has a job. Was a part-time cashier in a supermarket, stopped going to work when COVID came. Note, not followed, supermarket still open. She's just not going in. When I suggest maybe she couldn't afford £500,000 on a family home on her salary, she suggested she'd just get a council house, disregarding the huge waiting list and the fact that most council properties are in the ghetto parts of town. This is just the crust of a deep layer of an unhinged fantasy world that she lives in. My brother, on his own, let's just take his rich fiancée out of the equation, can't afford to even live where he currently rents because he's on minimum wage. I worked my arse off to buy my house on my own after working multiple jobs and saving up. He called my new area a hole in front of my entire family, when in reality, if he was dumped by his fiancée, he wouldn't even be able to afford a bedsit. Biggest snob. My dad gave him a super expensive award-winning bottle of wine, and he texted him saying it tasted awful. My brother is in tons of debt, but because his fiance's family is wealthy, he's acting like he's part of the elite and looks down on where I live, which is a lovely, affordable, working class town, by the way. My boss's wife, 28, she grew up in a wealthy family and married to a man who was third generation owning the company he was in. They were a regional power, etc. She was talking to a staff that in general made $36,000 a year, mumbling about a staffer who was on his honeymoon. Tennessee? Tennessee? She looked around the room for everyone to join in. My God, how did she agree to that? We did Hawaii, and that was the least I told him was acceptable. I hope there was a moment of awkward silence, or did the others actually join in? I smiled and said, different lives, different standards. Nice. I knew someone who unironically tried to convince that not only is Pokemon demonic, but they exist in real life and there are reported cases of them attacking and harming people. Sounds like the area I grew up in. Pokemon cards were a rarity because all the parents that found any would burn them. We had like a black market for them at school. I traded half my collection for a Pikachu from the 90s written in Japanese. Now, a foreign card was a once-in-a-lifetime find, let alone one from the 90s, so I guarded that thing with my life. Still have it, even though it's a little beat up. I loved Pokemon as a kid. I had all the games and probably about $500 worth of cards. My mom suddenly said it was demonic, and in her own words, we have to burn them as a sacrifice to God. I'm still pissed to this day. Also, she turned anti-vax around then too. Worst part is I believed her because I was around 9. You sacrifice Pokemon cards to God. What? A woman I knew a few years ago. She had a job. She was convinced that she was supposed to be a movie star. She never did any acting though. She also told me about the married man that she had slept with. He loves me, but he can't leave his wife. She actually did stop having sex with him, but they still hung out. My stepfather's grandpa suffered from psychosis in a strange way. He wasn't able to distinguish mirror reflections from real life. He would often be found talking to the mirrors, his reflection, for hours. Later on, he wasn't allowed to have any mirrors because he would believe that that man was there to kill him and often would turn violent. Turn violent as in he would start punching and clawing against the mirrors. I went to a private international school in London as a teenager. Most kids there had parents working good jobs, but in between them were some filthy rich kids with parents in the oil industry or something similar. In 8th grade, we were talking about our Easter break, and my friend from Belgium was talking about how his family had decided last minute to go there over the break, but had decided to drive there because there were no flights available. Then this Russian billionaire classmate of mine asked him, "Why don't you just take a private jet?" She was so clueless when we started laughing. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any similar stories of your own that you'd like to share, make sure you leave them in the comments. I do read every single one. Subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you all in the next video.